Alright, this is Thunderbolts from the Vault, a one-shot released in 2011, featuring a story written by Fabian Nicieza about 10 years earlier. This stars Nomad, Jack Nomad, and it follows up on the character after his appearances in earlier issues of Thunderbolts. We have an introduction by Fabio Nicieza explaining this one shot. This was written to run as an issue of Thunderbolts in the early 2000s, but it didn't get used. The plots and the characters moved on, and the Nomad storyline was becoming more and more irrelevant each month, so it never got published. One of the more interesting things here is you can get a sense that Fabio Nicieza did not care for Nomad's senseless execution. Something that I believe was only done because the character exposed how worthless resurrecting Bucky Man as a brainwashed assassin was. We had already done that exact story with Nomad. Anyway, we begin with Jack Nomad walking down a lonely road. Like a drifter, he was born to walk alone. It is a good splash page, in all honesty. Would make a good cover even. We are picking up on Nomad, following his time as a villain in Thunderbolts. We get a recap here of Fabio Nicieza's entire time with Nomad. Fabio Nicieza, of course, wrote Nomad's original two series, the mini-series and then the ongoing. And then in Thunderbolts, revealed his mystery villain was Jack Nomad. And I have definitely said this before, but Fabio Nicieza deserves respect just for the fact that the man pulled off not one, but two mystery identity characters in Thunderbolts, where the reveals are not only sensible, but they both received absolutely no criticism or pushback whatsoever. So Nomad, he was brainwashed into becoming a supervillain, and his mission was to assassinate the Thunderbolts. He was armed with an arsenal of seized weaponry from other villains, and he was actually pretty good at taking out the Thunderbolts. He had a one-on-one battle with Baron Zero. That is one of my favourite issues of Thunderbolts. That is also the issue where we get hefty amounts of foreshadowing to his identity and loads of red herrings that it is the original Bucky Man. See, completely pointless, isn't it? It's all been done before. Nomad seemingly killed Atlas Man in one issue. He critically wounded Lightning Lass. The big problem, though, was that he had an awful design. The mask was essential to conceal his identity, but the sad thing is that it looked great when he wasn't wearing the mask, but it also looked exactly like a palette swap of a DC character. Also, he was called Scourge. That was another bad thing about it. it didn't need that extra baggage. Nomad was freed from the tech that was controlling him, and he joined the Thunderbolts in taking down the person responsible. After that, Nomad slinked off into the shadows and was never seen or heard of again in Thunderbolts. This issue shows us what happened to Nomad, and it includes him once again posing as a woman. One thing I hate about Fabian Nicieza, I have had to distance myself from his life on Twitter. He is the most disingenuous, revisionist history tryhard possible. He will claim he was always writing dead pills as gay, that he was trying to make Juggernaut gay, that he was determined to have Snowman come out of the closet, and it is all bullshit. Dead Pills is always trying to fuck women in his comics. Snowman wasn't even starring in his Excellent Men book. He wrote Juggernaut one time, and he brought down the Twin Towers. The sad thing is, Fabian Nicieza has a lot of legitimately impressive history when it comes to printed representation. Northman coming out of the closet was something he was planning to do, and so that is why it was one of the first things the writer following him on Alpha Strike did. Jack Nomad spent an issue in drag, and at one point was going to contract AIDS from a needle. The most insane for its time one is Captain Marbles, the real one, Janice Vell. He had the character's girlfriend be gender fluid, and Janice Vell did not care or have any preference for a female or male form. The thing is, none of those characters are as famous as Dead Pills or Snowman, so he needs to go bigger and lie about all the things he never wrote. Anyway, my point being, if you wanted to show a character who is clearly uneasy in their own body and maybe prefers the idea of being a woman, there is enough ammunition to have Jack Nomad explore that. Here he is using an image inducer. He has taken on the appearance of Song Girl from the Thunderbolts, and he is interested in learning more about the Thunderbolts. Jack is trying to understand what made them capable of becoming heroes. So he has gone to Song Girl's hometown, to the trailer park where she was raised, and he finds that her mom is in an abusive relationship with either a dealer or a pimp. This doesn't answer any of his questions about why Song Girl was able to turn out the way she did. I will say, her mom does actually reappear after this in one of Nokia Engage's Thunderbolts fill-ins. There's a series of one-shots and issues by Nokia Engage, which form a short run of their own. They were all done because Warren Fallis was dreadful at meeting the deadlines for a monthly series, but demand for Thunderbolts comics was high. They felt they needed something out every month. Nokia Engage's Thunderbolts comics are superior to Warren Fallis's ones, actually. And the appearance of Song Girl's mom doesn't actually contradict anything from this story, which hasn't been published yet. Next, we have Moonstump. Jack Nomad is disguising himself as Moonstump and meeting with one of her former colleagues, co-workers, definitely not one of her friends. I like to pose questions that will test your heterosexual identities. Would you fuck Jack Nomad if he was disguised as Moonstump? Like this. I am also going with the idea that he has an artificial or magic vagina in place of his dick. Or of course, you could spin her around and do her up the butt. And if anyone is perfect for doing up the butt, it is Moonstump. Would you do her knowing that it is actually a dude underneath a very convincing disguise? Keep in mind, Moonstump is incredibly hot. Like, Moonstump is a 10. And when else are you going to get a fuck Moonstump up the bum? In this issue, we also get a great Andy Book style pose of Moonstump in costume. The disappointing thing is that it was never used in an Andy Book ever. This is also calling back to this person that Jack Nomad is talking to about Moonstump. This is a direct reference to a Kurt Busey issue. This was a woman Moonstump went for lunch with, and she observed Moonstump phoning up a spouse who was worried that her husband was having an affair, and Moonstump pretended to be the other woman to fuel the wife's insecurities. Again, Jack Nomad doesn't learn anything about Moonstump other than she is a bitch. And then next in line is Mark, whose real name is Abe. And this is Jack in disguise as Jack Barnes. Get it? It's combining his name with Buckyman's surname. He is talking to locals in Colorado. In this case, Sergeant Paul Widows. He too appeared before this. He was introduced in the Life Sentences one-shot. Oh yeah, that was when Mark was in his blackface period. Why isn't Fabian Nicieza revising that history instead of claiming he was writing gay characters when he wasn't? Mark, who was probably being written as gay, reported some local crime to this policeman, who was also probably being written as gay. He appeared again in the Count Gravity story, a very minor character, and I feel like maybe he was intended to have a bit more of a story, or there was meant to be more of a subplot there about a cop trusting Mark. Or maybe he would have come out the closet or something. We do get all that stuff here. Not the gay shit, but he talks about how Mark was an honest guy, that he didn't seem in any way villainous. It is nice to, I suppose, get a little bit of payoff here with this side character. I should mention the reference to the Count Gravity story. This means that this comes at least 10 or 12 issues after Nomad's last appearance in the title. It's not a case of you should read this immediately after issue 50. Our last character that Nomad investigates is Atlas Man, complete with flashbacks to what I would say is Tales to Suspend 88, rather than his first appearance in Avengers. And then Count Gravity murdering Atlas Man's kid brother in issue 56. I am so happy they actually corrected the layers on that page. It took 20 years, but the boxes are placed correctly now. This is what it originally looked like. This was how the issue was printed. I think a big look at the parallels between Atlas Man and Nomad could have been enough for a full issue. They are both very similar in a lot of ways. I would have liked to see them interact again. There is a lot of stuff to mine there. Now we have Jack Nomad gets some quick petty digs in at Henry Guy Ritchie, the man responsible for ordering him around as Scourge, and Jack again poses as a woman to do so. And then we end with Jack Nomad's new lease on life, his new direction. He encounters Rock Lobster from the Serpent League of America. He is working at a bank, and they have a short battle. Nomad had fought Rock Lobster before, as seen in the middle panel on this page, which is recycled Kirsten DeWitt art from Captain America 342, which was also the character's first real appearance. Rock Lobster was introduced as part of the second generation of the Serpent League of America. They were characters who were secretly allied with Madame Hydra's, who was attempting to usurp the League for her own goals. Rock Lobster wasn't even there when most of these characters were properly introduced in Captain America 337. He showed up afterwards and wasn't announced or anything. He was there in the background. He battled Nomad in the background. His power is he has steel skin, and he also throws down balls that carry coils to bind his opponent. He subsequently stayed with the Serpent League of America afterwards, and like most those second generation members, he never got a chance to exert much characterization ever. The Andy books reveal he came from a fictional African country introduced in Fantastic Force 119. The scripts confused him and Gay Ada a lot. One of them was dating Angela Anaconda. When Rachel Diamond was put on trial by the Serpent League of America, he voted in favour of finding her innocent. That is about it for him and character work. So this takes precedence as the most amount of character work ever given to Rock Lobster. He is working at a bank. No man hypothesises that he is working there because he is casing the joint next door. He is planning to steal an adamantium resin to improve his balls. His weapons, not his testes. No man, however, points out that Rock Lobster has actually gotten himself a decent job. It pays an alright wage, and that actually, maybe, he would be better off if he stuck at it. Otherwise, he will end up getting his head kicked in by Nomad or some other hero. Rock Lobster sees the sense and accepts Nomad's proposition. It is left ambiguous if Rock Lobster was planning anything criminal, but he agrees with Nomad's idea and that it's better for him to keep working an honest job rather than get on anyone's radar again. After this, well, before this was even published, Rock Lobster was back with the Serpent League of America in Robert Kirkham's run. It cannot be helped. This story was never printed, so the character wasn't even given this out. And even after this, it's okay enough to have him turn back to a life of crime. I was really excited to look at this, and when I reread it, I got to the end, and I was happy because it's a nice little issue to talk about. But then, at the back, we have a little bit of writing from Kurt Busey. Kurt Busey had nothing to do with this issue. He had nothing to do with the original stories in which this is spinning out of. He has never once written Jack Norman in a comic ever. The closest thing Kurt Busey has to a credit related to Jack Norman is when he wrote a very insulting letter into Captain America, and it was published in an issue where Jack Norman appeared in 2 panels. Kurt Busey created the Thunderbolts. None of the characters, not even the idea, which was stolen wholesale from Gardner Fox. Kurt Busey needs to be remembered for creating Summit, though. The Thunderbolts. And so he does this every fucking chance, any excuse. He goes and begs the editor of Thunderbolts to let him write some meaningless prattle in place of letters in Thunderbolts comics about how he created Thunderbolts. Kurt Busey has nothing to say anymore. He is doing this every fucking year, giving himself and his words priority over the words of the readers. Much like in the early 70s, he did with his own fucking obscenely long and arrogant letters that would sometimes require the entire page to print. He doesn't have anything to say. He has exhausted every possible point about the Thunderbolts. He also routinely neglects to mention Martin Bagels, the co-creator, because that is Kurt Busey. He doesn't care. He only cares about his own name. Legitimately, every 10 or so issues of Thunderbolts, Kurt Busey will show up to wax about creating the team, and he doesn't even seem aware of how the book evolved after his time writing. He doesn't seem to care what is happening. He loves that the title was still running because every few months he could dust off some generic drivel to remind you who you have to thank and who you have to look up to for creating this title. Fabian Nicieza exerted some affection for Nomad as a character. There was a hint of sadness that he did not like the pitiful death another writer had half-heartedly forced onto Nomad. He talked about this story specifically and what it meant. Kurt Busey only ever talks about Kurt Busey. He also outright says here that the only comic created after 1975 with staying power was the one he created. This is a decent one-shot. I know my subscriber, Kuramai, or Kuramais, however he wants to pronounce it, will be a big fan of this one, and he wishes there was more Jack Nomad stories. I think this is a nice epilogue to the character. I would have liked to see him in this role a bit more, as a wanderer trying to coax villains into redeeming themselves like the Thunderbolts proved they could. It was nice to have one more Fabian Nicieza Thunderbolts comic in 2011 as well. I give everything about it, except the Kurt Busey appearance, 7 thumbs up.